Hi, this is Yvonne for Central Kentucky Television, and I'm here at the station with Dennis Morgenson. How you doing, Dennis?
I'm good. How are you?
Fine. And Dennis is from the Marion County Extension Office. Well, he's from all the Extension offices.
Washington County.
Washington County.
Yeah.
Yes.
Better plug that in there. They won't like that.
Well, I see you over here in Marion County, so
yes.
maybe that's why.
Yeah. And you all broadcast all three counties around here, so that's good.
We sort of adopted you.
That's it. Yeah, that's it.
We're going to talk about gardening today.
Right, and you all were wanting to do a small vegetable garden here. As far as I know, there was nothing growing here before, so I'm going to kind of take people through what they need to look at. First thing we want to do is when you pick your site, you want to pick full sun, which you've got right here. You also want to make sure you have well-drained soil. You don't want something that's going to be low or it's going to hold water, because most all of our vegetable crops don't like that. So, and to pull a soil test, we usually want to go pick randomly 5 or 6 spots to do that soil test with. And sometimes you'll see a soil probe, which basically is just a little silver piece of tube that you stick in the ground, you pull it out, and you take the little core of soil out. And you'll do that in 5 or 6 spots in the area you want to test. And then we'll mix it together, and we'll send it into the lab, and UK will look at it, and they'll do a test on it, and it'll tell us what's in your soil and what you might need to add as far as fertilizer goes. And when you do that, you'll bring that bunch of soil into your extension office, and every extension office in the state will send these off. And what we'll do is we'll put it in this little bag, and if you look at this bag here, it's got a little line on it here, and that's all we need is that, but we're trying to get an average. So if you bring in more than that, that's fine. We're going to mix it together to get an average of your site. So most people don't have a soil probe. We do have them at the extension offices for you to check them out. And just so happens somebody had it checked out today. So we're going to do what you would do at home, because most people have a shovel or something to that effect. So if you hold that.
Hold the bag.
And what we have is our shovel, and I went ahead around here a while ago before we started filming, and was just pushing this in the ground to see if this would be a good spot. And you can feel that it hit something there. But for the most part, right in this area, there's not many rocks. But what we do is we're just going to take a core of soil out, and you don't need to go but about 4 to 6 inches down. I mean, we're not needing to go to China here to do this, but if you would look down here, I'm going to pull this core of soil out, and you can see, well, we hit an ant bed, but that's okay. But this top layer, you want to take this thatch. That's your the roots and all the stuff from the grass. And we're going to take the bag, and normally we'd put this in a bucket, but since we have the bag here handy, we're going to take that about 4 inches of core of soil out, and we're going to do that in about 3 or 4 spots here, just to get an average of this little area here where you're going to put some vegetables out here later on. Okay.
Now the soil sample here, the results of that soil sample will tell us whether or not we can successfully grow plants here.
Right. We know that it'll grow plants because it's growing weeds, but
we got the weeds.
The weeds don't need quite the same thing as much as your vegetables do. But it'll tell us what our phosphorus, potassium, magnesium, calcium, all those kinds of things are in the soil, and our pH, which most around in central Kentucky, most of our pH is naturally. I say most because there's always different areas that might have something different, but most about 6.5, and 6.5 to 6.8 is really good for vegetables, so we're pretty good there. And most everybody has a high calcium. We have the limestone soils here, which is the reason the bourbon industry is here, because of the limestone, and horses, and it's really good for plants as well. So with our calcium, we'll get all those tests back, and then we'll know how much phosphorus and potassium, if any, that we need. This test costs $6. You can do it at your extension office. The good thing about this is you may be putting fertilizer on. You bought fertilizer and put it on and you didn't need it, or you're not putting enough, or all that stuff. This way, this will tell us exactly what's needed for this area, and we'll know exactly how much to put down, and we'll know that our plants are being fed appropriately. So we would go ahead and do this in like 3 or 4 more spots in this little area here to mix it together, and then we'll know what our soil test is. When it comes back, we'll know what our soil has in it. Now, it'll take probably 10 days to 2 weeks to get this back, so it's fine. That'll put us in the 1st of May, whenever we're supposed to be out of frost date. I know right now that the weather, it's hard to think that we could be having frost again, but you never know. Yes. We've had frost up until, the average last frost date's April 28th around here. But as you know, most everybody, there's an old song that you hear, is "Plant Your Maters on Derby Day."
Yes.
That's because usually by the first Saturday in May, we're out of frost around here. Now, that doesn't mean that we couldn't still get one, but most of the time we're in good shape by then to go ahead and plant most of our warm season vegetables and stuff without having to worry about a frost or a freeze hitting them. But you never know, but just keep that in mind that if you've went out and we've got this warm weather, almost summer-like the last few days, all the greenhouses and stores are selling all this frost-sensitive stuff. Just keep in mind, if you plant it, you may need to cover it if we have a frost. But for the most part, we should be okay. Now, what we can do in the meantime with this area here is to kill these weeds. And if you look, we've got some grass, some fescue, we've got chickweed, we've got wild garlic, we've got some dandelions, a little bit of everything.
We've got a menagerie.
We've got a menagerie of weeds and a little bit of grass. But what we're going to do is mark off a little area, and what you need to do is spray it with Roundup, which is a herbicide, which will kill everything here, which will make it a lot better for us when we're trying to start our vegetables. So we'll have to work it up after that. But I like to get a good kill first. That way I know that we're not starting with weeds already in our bed. So we can go ahead and get rid of that stuff with that, and then we can just turn it under. Now, if you don't want to spray a herbicide, you can always just go on this area and put down newspaper or something pretty thick and then plant in it and then put mulch over that. That newspaper mulch will kill the weeds that are there if you don't want to do that. I generally like to work up the area, though, because I like to get it turned up and get it loosened up for our plants to really take off. But, people that are opposed to that can do it that way, and you can always do the old-fashioned way where you dig this by shovel and turn it over. That way the weeds are underneath and they're not taking over. So for me, I'm going to go ahead and do the easy thing, which would be the Roundup first, and then we're going to work it up and get ready for a bed after that.
Okay. Now tell me this, what are some plants that I should plant first in my garden?
Okay, this is going to be a summer vegetable garden because we're getting down, where we can plant that stuff. But if you wanted to plant cool season stuff, you would have went back into the middle of March, and we would have planted things like potatoes, broccoli, cabbage, carrots, beets, all that kind of stuff in mid-March. And we could still get by with beets and carrots and stuff at this time of year too. With a few rocks in here, we probably wouldn't be real successful with carrots because when they go down, they hit that and they'll make them forked and won't be nice carrots like we like. But we can do that stuff in the spring. But this is going to be your summer garden, so we're going to look at stuff like tomatoes and peppers, maybe eggplant. Eggplant, if people's first garden, is probably not the best thing because it's really an insect magnet. So you have to keep an eye on it, or you go out there and you won't have much plant left. We could also do some squash and cucumbers, whatever you want to plant. Basically, a summer vegetable garden stuff. What you generally think of as being a good vegetable that you get out in summer, that you get at the grocery store, whatever, we can usually grow those here.
Tomatoes.
Everybody wants tomatoes, and those are, that'll be the first thing probably that most people are going to think about planting is tomatoes. And that's why it's good to get your test, because then we'll know what our calcium level is. If anybody's out there's ever grown tomatoes, every once in a while one will be kind of black and rotten on the bottom of the fruit, and you have to throw it away. It's called blossom end rot. And a lot of people think that's a fungus or a bacteria or a disease that caused that, and usually it's not. Probably 90% of the time it's due to a lack of calcium. Now, like I said earlier, most of our Central Kentucky soils have very high calcium. Anything over 2,500 is high. And I'll be willing to, I won't bet, but I'd say that this soil is going to be at least that much just because of where it's at. Which means probably calcium in the soil wasn't the issue. It was uneven water and the plant couldn't take the calcium up. Then when the plant can't take the calcium up, it needs that calcium for cell development to grow, so it'll take it out of the skin of that fruit first. And then that allows the skin discolor and to break down and rot then. So, those are just little things that you think about that it's easy to fix. Just put down a good layer of mulch and keep it evenly watered if we have a dry spell water. But a mulch will help you more than anything in that situation because it keeps your soil more moist and more even than it would if it was just bare soil where it got to dry out and get really wet back and forth, and the plant just couldn't take up enough calcium for that.
Okay. Now with tomatoes, everybody loves tomatoes, and I mean everybody and everything likes tomatoes. What if we plant tomatoes, or what are some things that we can do to kind of protect them? Well,
it just depends on what's going on. Like up here where you're at, there's not many trees, close by. A lot of times people with tomatoes will have squirrels will go in after them, especially if it's dry, and they'll pick them off and eat holes in them because they're looking for water when they do that. Raccoons could be another problem. Maybe not as bad with tomatoes as sweet corn or something like that. But I know, I think Gary has some dogs that runs around here pretty soon, or sometimes. That scent can help keep some of that stuff away. Probably the biggest problem you're going to have up here is probably deer. Deer is a big problem, and not as much on tomatoes as some other crops, but it could be an issue with tomatoes.
Now,
Sweet corn's the number one that we have issues with varmints getting in it.
Okay. I know we have wild turkeys.
Wild turkeys can be a problem. That big red shiny fruit out there, if they work their way up here,
they do.
They do. So they could be an issue as well. And there's not a lot you can do other than put a fence around it.
Yeah.
You can always put a fence around it. You can always put a little electric fence up. If depending on what's getting in your garden. If it's a raccoon or something, you could put a fence about 4 inches and another wire up about 12 inches. That way you know that they have to touch that to get into the bed. And it doesn't kill them or anything, but it just stings them. The electric fence does, and it kind of teaches them not to come back.
Yeah.
But those are a few things you can do. But if you live out with a high pressure, in an area, especially with sweet corn, it's the one that's going to have the most trouble. And anybody's ever grown it and had raccoons get in it, you think, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to pick that, and it's going to be ready. I'm going to pick it in the morning, and that night, lo and behold, the raccoons beat you to it and got every bit of it. They don't leave an ear for you. Deer usually will come in and eat a few at a time, and they kind of give you a little bit of warning. But the raccoons are the ones that come in and they'll get it all at one time. I mean, and they don't just they'll pull it off and they'll take 3 or 4 bites out of one and throw it down, and then they'll go back and get in and get it. They don't eat the whole thing like you would think that, like a person
pesky
would.
Raccoon.
Right. So those are big issues for those. Sometimes people leave a radio on out there when they know stuff's getting ready, and that just keeps your your varmints away. You could leave channel 6 on.
Yeah.
If you could get your TV out there, I guess you could tape it and play it on a radio, but that really does help, just the sound of people. And sometimes if you know it's getting close with the corn especially, and you have deer problems, believe it or not, you can hang I've heard 2 kinds of soap, but I've used dial soap, and just take a lady's old pantyhose and put the bar of soap in it, tie it off, and hang it on a stick out around your garden, and that smell, they won't come to it. It's human smell, so they'll stay away from it. Now that only works for like a month, so you wait until your corn's getting close, and then you put it out there just to make sure that they stay away from it. Doesn't work for raccoons though. They're a little sneakier than that. You have to be a little more creative with them.
They'll steal the soap and the
they might, and they wash their food, so they might wash the food in it. Who knows? But the radio, but a good dog is also, if you've got a dog that just barks and makes noise and runs around, the smell and just harassment will keep a lot of that stuff away.
Okay. Well, listen, thank you, Dennis Morgenson.
You're welcome.
For all your help today, and for your some of your good topics and things to think about too, as far as plants and all that go, and the ideas of how to keep little varmints out of the garden. Right. We really appreciate that.
And you're going to have this sprayed and worked up when I get back, right?
Yes, Gary certainly will.
Okay, Gary's going to do it. Okay.
Thank you, Dennis Morgenson from the Washington County Extension Office. All right. This has been Yvonne McNary for Central Kentucky Television.